What's going on, everyone? Ruse here, and welcome back to the channel. I've been getting a lot of questions asking about how people should be gearing their characters for the Abyss and what they should be aiming for when it comes to artifacts. So I'm here to release an artifact guide to explain everything you need to know about artifacts. This guide is going to be talking about what artifacts are, what each slot does, and what you should be aiming for from early game all the way to end game. This video is going to end up being a little lengthy, so I will be setting up timestamps to direct you guys to the parts of the video that you want to get to. If you're someone that only needs to be talking about endgame, or maybe you're looking for builds and examples, there'll be a timestamp for that. Getting all that out of the way, let's get straight into the guide. So to start off with this guide, I want to start talking about what are artifacts and what purposes they serve. So artifacts are items that define the build of your character mainly and will help make or break your characters. They can determine whether they're supports or DPS and all the things in between. So to start off with our artifacts, there are 5 different rarities and 5 different slots for them. White artifacts are 1 star, green artifacts are 2 star, blue artifacts are 3 star, purple artifacts are 4 star, and orange artifacts are 5 star. With each rarity of artifacts, there's a different level cap, except for at white and green. These both share a max level of 4. Blue artifacts have a max level of 12. Purple artifacts have a max level of 16. And orange artifacts have a max level of 20. So while artifacts are separated by their rarity and have different max levels, each type of artifact can have a different main stat as well. The 5 slots of artifacts go as following. From left to right, it is your flower, your plume, your sands, your goblet, and your circlet. These 5 different slots are really important to know because they can end up having different main stats. So if you're looking for a certain main stat, knowing which slot you have to look for is really important. Your flower and your plume will always have the same main stat, making them the ideal piece you want to go for when you're trying to build a 2-piece set or a 4-piece set as well. Flowers will always give HP as their main stat, and plumes will always give attack for their main stat. Now for these last 3 items, they all share the fact that they can increase HP percent, defense percent, attack percent, and elemental mastery, but they will have their own unique stats as well. For your sands, it's going to be energy recharge. If you want to end up trying to get an energy recharge percent, the only way to do so would be from your sands. On your goblets, the stats that are unique to them are going to end up being an elemental damage bonus of any of the elements. So it could go from a Nemo, Cryo, Geo, and so on, or physical damage percent. And for your circlet, the unique stats for these are going to end up being crit rate and crit damage, or a healing bonus percent. So now that you know about the 5 different artifact slots, it's good to know about set bonuses. So there are 2 different types of set bonuses, 2-piece and 4-piece. There are items that can share a 2-piece set bonus under a different name, and you cannot build 2 items or 1 item with a similar set bonus to another to get a different one. An artifact has to be a part of the same set to give you a set bonus, with some of the items sharing 2-piece set bonuses, as I said. The differences between the items is when it comes to 4-piece set bonuses. For example, the instructor set bonus for 4-piece will increase the elemental mastery for party members for 8 seconds, and the troop set bonus will just increase the charge damage for catalysts and bow users. The set bonuses are good things to know about when you're trying to make builds as well. If you're trying to go for a certain 4-piece set bonus, you have to go and farm the items in 4 slots to get that bonus and wear the same set. It doesn't matter what the 5th item is at that point, since only 4 matter and not all 5. one last thing before we start moving on to the other parts of this guide is to know that all your artifacts can end up getting substats. These substats are things that are going to end up being less than your main stat, so that's why you want to focus on your main stat for whatever you're mainly aiming for towards a build. And the substats can end up being anything else from the flat numbers or the percentages. Your substat cannot be the same as your main stat, so this is where a lot of RNG takes place towards making really good artifacts. With all that information about what artifacts are out of the way, let's go ahead and move into what you should be doing from early game on artifact wise in gearing your characters. So to start off, you're gonna go ahead and want to try and find a character that you like, preferably a main DPS. If they're a support DPS or whatever, that's fine too, but if they are a damage dealer in general, that will help out. You can figure this out if you go to ascend them. Most characters will have a main stat that increases as they are ascended. Elemental mastery characters are really good at making reactions go off and having a lot of damage that way. If you just put attack on a character, it will generally work out as well though. So go ahead and find the character you are going to funnel as much as possible and see if you get a 2-piece set on them. If you can't, that's fine, just keep moving on, but if you can, that's a great bonus. So go ahead and find whatever items are best for you at the time. If you have a good 4-star item early game that has attack percent or can increase your stats a lot, go ahead and upgrade them. For items that you want to upgrade first in priority, it's usually going to end up being your feather for the just raw stat increase that it gives, and then your percentages will follow along. Always upgrade the higher rarity ones first since they have a higher return and they are going to most likely be used more on other characters when you start switching this early game gear out. For just a small recap on what your early game is, it's just about getting artifacts and increasing your stats as much as possible, because stats early game is going to be what carries you the most. You really don't want to be investing as many characters as possible because this is going to hurt your economy and stuff, make your artifacts way worse, and overall reduce your spread a lot. Just focus on your 1 to 2 characters and you will be a-okay. And do not be afraid of upgrading things like the attack percent artifacts and stuff early game, even if they don't make sets, because those can be moved to the characters later on as you get gear for them. It's not going to end up being a waste, and ultimately in the end you can end up using it as fodder if need be. Now that we're transitioning mid game, this is where you want to go ahead and start mainly looking at the characters that you're playing and making your builds around them. Since just raw setting attack percent isn't going to end up being that good, while you can still do it at this point and you should be investing in items, you're going to want to start looking at set bonuses since they're going to start becoming more available to you. The better sets will start dropping more often. You can end up getting better drops from your world bosses, and domains will start opening up to you. So once you're able to start getting sets like this, it's really nice to start farming them. Even though they're just 4-star at this point, since you're not around 35, it's still really useful because it's going to end up increasing strength on your characters. Since you're still at around mid game from 25 to 34, farming these things are really useful and can get you a nice power boost and maybe even give you a really end game piece. Don't worry too much about farming it since you want to save your origin resin or your fragile resin as much as possible for once you're higher AR. But if you can farm it and you don't need things like money or XP, then it's good to just try and get additional pieces. Even if the rolls on it are bad, you can use it for fodder and just overall keep increasing the strength of your characters to help you move towards endgame. Even still, while you're in mid game, you still don't want to worry too much about substats at this point though. If you have a purple item, it's okay to look at the substats and see if they're really good, because that can help determine if it's going to end up being one of your late game pieces, since it's super unlikely that a 5-star item is going to end up having the perfect substats. If you have a 4-star item at this point with a good main stat and substat, you should really focus on that, since it can end up being one of your endgame pieces, especially if it's on one of the better sets that you're starting to unlock at this point. So now moving on to endgame, the 35 to 40 range, mainly 40, you can start farming the best sets for yourself. You're going to want to look at what you want to build on your characters and start aiming for these sets. You also want to start looking at the main and substats as much as possible on these pieces, because this is going to be what you're using pretty much for the rest of the game, or at least until we get updates and new sets come out. For example, I want to go ahead and farm this as much as possible while avoiding using my fragile resin, since I'm not yet 40 and I can't get the 5-star drops. I'm farming this, for example, on my Venti because it is a really good set. It works well with what I'm trying to build on him, and I want to farm it. I'm not going to use fragile resin, as I said, because it's not the best possible drops yet. If I do end up getting a good piece, I would want to upgrade it as much as possible. In this case, I ended up doing the domain earlier and I didn't get the stat I wanted. Since I'm at this endgame point and I don't find this useful, I won't upgrade this. And there are a couple of reasons on why I'm not going to. So, to begin with, the main stat on this item is not what I want. In the case of my Venti, I would want crit damage because that's what I'm aiming for in this slot, and it's the only slot that would give it as a main stat. The other major reason why it's less, but it's still really important to note, is that this only has 2 substats already. Purple items can spawn with up to 3, and legendary items can spawn with all 4. With this one spawning with 2 and its really bad main stat, this is just going to end up being a waste of resources for me. Since resources are getting really scarce at this point in the game, this would be a complete waste of my time and is not something I would want to upgrade in this case, even though it is a set that I want. In other cases, for example, a gladiator set, this is something that I'm working for getting my razor, since I think it could end up being a really good set for him. I'm working towards getting the set as much as possible, but the drops on it aren't good. In the same case as the other piece, this isn't something I want on this character, and this one is also just a mediocre one. I'm upgrading it to see if I can test the bonus on it and see if it works on the character. If not, then I could try moving around and seeing if other set bonuses will end up working really well as well. With how limited resin can be at this point and not being rank 40, of course, I'm not able to go ahead and start farming a bunch of sets at once. Focus on one at a time, so I wouldn't try and get this one for my razor yet while I think it's really good. I want to focus on one at a time and getting as much as possible for the set. Focus on one character still and getting their sets out as much as possible, and then continue transitioning to the other characters as you play. This is going to be something that's going to be similar throughout all the stages, from early game, funneling one character and replacing the gear, to end game. Since you can start farming these sets, go ahead and do it and try and get your rolls as good as possible. Figure out the builds that you want to go on for each character and start working towards them. If you really enjoy getting these kinds of sets, that's going to be pretty much what you're doing from AR 40 and up. Like I said, you can start doing this at 35 like I am, but once you're 40, that's just about it. You're going to be working towards getting these sets and just getting as many good rolls as possible. Don't forget that 4-star does not mean it'll be worse than 5-star. As long as you can get the main stat good and the substats good, it could end up being better than a 5-star one that has worse substats. Now, with all of that information out of the way, our video is finally coming to an end. I want to thank you so much on all the support my videos have been getting recently. It means a lot to me, so thank you so much to everyone that watches. If you do enjoy my content, please like and subscribe. I will be uploading more, and I do stream on YouTube as well. So, thank you so much for all of that, everyone. Please let me know what you think about this video. If you like in-depth videos like this, let me know. And I do apologize about the length. I just wanted to help make the best guide as possible for all of you. Thanks again for everything, and I will see you all in the next video.